It's Morning Ireland, and we're turning to the controversy at Maynooth Seminary. It shows no sign of going away. There have been allegations of a so-called gay culture at the 221-year-old St Patrick's College. Yesterday, the Archbishop of Dublin said he would no longer send seminarians from his diocese there. He criticised a culture of secrecy and anonymous complaints and said in his view the seminary was not what he called the healthiest place for his students. We're joined now by Father Brendan Hoban of the Association of Catholic Priests. Good morning, Father.
Good morning.
You were a student in Maynooth, albeit some time ago. What's your take on what you've been hearing this week?
Well, I'm very surprised at the fact that, I suppose, this has been going on for a long time. Maynooth has been criticised by numbers of people. I think there are a number of people who kind of have been very critical over the years. Conservative commentators, particularly in Catholic newspapers, who consistently criticise Maynooth for being unorthodox or not facilitating very traditional candidates for the priesthood. Then you have former students who were disgruntled because they were deemed to be unsuitable for priesthood and were asked to move out of Maynooth. And there are also, I suppose, the fact that there are a lot of right-wing, or maybe right-wing isn't the term, traditional theologians who feel that we should get back maybe to the old theology rather than the theology of the Second Vatican Council that Pope Francis is proposing now. And these groups of people have over the years been consistently attacking Maynooth because Maynooth, as far as they're concerned, isn't orthodox enough for them and is not traditional enough for them. And they're really very much in the image of, I suppose, the former popes, John Paul and Benedict XV. The new pope takes a different line on all of this.
Yeah, are you actually suggesting that all of these issues have influenced Dermot Martin to do what he has done?
Well, I don't know, because I find it quite remarkable, for example, that Archbishop Martin would decide to send his students to Rome, even though he says students should be prepared in their own culture and so on. There's no other seminary in Ireland, effectively, except Maynooth at present. And I really don't understand what it is that's happening or what his intentions are. I mean, behind all of this is the bigger question, the larger question of vocations to the priesthood. I mean, we're talking here about the Archbishop of Dublin transferring 3 students. Now, Dublin has 99 parishes, over 1 million Catholics, and only 1 diocesan priest under 40 years of age. So it seems extraordinary that attention is being given to what seems to be kind of, moving the deck chairs on the Titanic rather than getting to the issues that are important. I don't really understand what Archbishop Martin is doing, and I think he's unfair to Maynooth, and I think he will damage Maynooth by what he's doing. Seeing him on the RTE news on television talking about sexual activity and so on, the reality is that was already investigated by Cardinal Dolan back in 2011 when the Rome investigation took place, and it was seen to have no substance.
Well, what do you think ordinary Catholics will make of the fact that you have all of these issues going on, the secrecy of culture as it's being described, a gay culture, young priests who are in training using gay dating apps, and apparently, if we're to believe it, that this is standard practice? What do you think ordinary Catholics would make of that?
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. If it is to be believed, these are anonymous allegations. Some of them, we're told, are coming through now the system, but it's not clear that they are. And when they were investigated, they were found to have no substance in them. I mean, the reality is that in a seminary, you're always going to have a mixture of gay and heterosexual candidates. Of course, that has always been the case. And there will be, from time to time, incidents that maybe people would prefer they didn't happen. But they do happen, human nature being what it is. But in the overall sort of series of things, looking at it in the round, I mean, there doesn't seem to be really anything substantially proven in terms of what's happening in Maynooth. The allegations have been made, particularly by disgruntled students, and the reality is that authorities in seminaries have to make very difficult decisions, sometimes decisions that bishops don't like, particularly that students don't like, and they have to take responsibility for that. But Maynooth have been very, very strong in upholding their standards, and that they don't allow themselves to be rushed in different directions. They have a long tradition there going back over 200 years, and I think in the long run, I think Maynooth could be extremely damaged by this, and we have to remember it's the only show in town, it's the only seminary in Ireland.
Do you think if Maynooth had handled allegations and complaints that were made by people who were in training there better, things would be different? Do you think there have been issues in that regard?
Well, I'm not sure of that. I mean, when the investigation took place in Rome, not all of them, but many of the priests who were running the college in Rome, the Irish College in Rome, were removed after Cardinal Dolan's investigation. Cardinal Dolan had the same investigation into Maynooth, and as far as I can see, nobody was removed. In other words, there seemed to be satisfaction. Now, the word was at the time that Cardinal Dolan, who's a kind of a swashbuckling kind of John Wayne kind of figure, that he was coming to Maynooth to sort out two things, the orthodoxy of the theology and the gay ring and so on, the accusations of gay sex and so on and so forth. He said in his report that there was no evidence to support these. So, I mean, in a sense, it's strange that Archbishop Martin should be sending students out of Maynooth, which got a clean bill of health, more or less, to Rome, which didn't get a clean bill of health.
He's suggesting that perhaps some training in the real world might be better. He described yesterday a closed, strange world of seminaries. Isn't that a reality, though?
It is, and it always was a reality. Seminaries were always kind of hothouse kind of places. There were very strange places where you got together. For example, when I was there were 500 students in Maynooth. There's something like 60 now. And at that time, it was a strange hothouse kind of atmosphere. And seminaries are that kind of thing. But people have been arguing for years that seminaries need to be reformed. And people are talking now, for example, about apprenticeship type, where students would be put into parishes, would be apprenticed, if you like, to other priests, and then they would do their training, go off to do their theology or whatever.
What does the Association of Catholic Priests say to that, being one of the main reforming organisations within the Catholic Church?
We would have no problem at all with seminaries being reformed. We believe they should be reformed. But we don't believe that sort of, moving sort of a few students here to Rome and making a big song and dance about it is any contribution to seminary reformation. The reformation needs to happen. We will be very, very supportive of that. But we need to keep our feet on the ground and not to be changing things that don't need to be fixed.
Yeah, but when you talk about reform, and you talk consistently as an association about reforming the church, if we're seeing a seminary which is closed, an apparent veil of secrecy surrounding it, is that healthy? Is that the way it should be?
It isn't the way it should be, and I think it does need reformation, and I think people need to put their heads together.
So Maynooth needs reformation, is that what you're saying?
Maynooth, every seminary in the world needs reformation because it's on a monastic platform, and it needed reformation 50 years ago when I was there, and people were arguing for it over the decades since, and it will always be in need of reformation. But I think what you need to do is to reform the institution rather than kind of take the ground from under it.
All right, thank you for taking our call this morning. That's Father Brendan Hogan there of the Association of Catholic Priests.